Before I begin, I would like to thank the Decho and Clicho First Nations for supporting this project. My work takes place on their traditional territories, and I've been lucky to have been made so welcome in the last 2 years, especially in Kikisa and Fort Providence. Just look at those clouds. Nothing like a smoky summer to make you love clouds.
Nice clouds.
This has been... Since 2023, even people living in Toronto know that forest fires in the boreal are increasing in size, frequency, and severity. That year alone, 18 million hectares of forest burned in Canada, more than 3 times the previous record, and mostly in the boreal regions. More than a fifth of that was in the Northwest Territories. NWT's last extreme fire year was 2014, not even a decade prior. These extreme fire years have far-reaching impacts for people, wildlife, and plants residing in the boreal forest. Effects that are economical, ecological, political, and can feel astronomical for those of us that live in it. Woodland caribou are a species of concern within the scope of this changing fire regime. One of the most important habitat features for woodland caribou are lichen woodlands, mature coniferous stands with caribou lichen as the dominant understory species. Lichen woodlands serve as winter habitat for caribou, and caribou lichen make up more than 50% of their winter diet. Unfortunately, when these lichen woodlands burn, it can take up to 80 years for them to regenerate. And as more land area succumbs to fire, that means available caribou winter habitat is contracting. Okay, wait. 80 years for lichen woodlands to regenerate? What? That is literally a lifetime. What could possibly take so long? Well, a new patch of lichen grows when a fragment breaks off the old patch, scatters a few feet away, then starts growing a new patch in the new location, at the breakneck speed of a few millimeters a year. When you consider that slow propagation, and then scale up to a 200,000 hectare fire, well, 80 years starts to make sense. It isn't the growing that takes forever, though it's slow, it's lichens arriving to disturbed areas. If caribou lichens arriving is what takes so long for lichen woodlands to regenerate, then simply transplanting lichens from a healthy to a disturbed area is just accelerating the natural process. Research shows that lichen mats can regrow via transplantation. So, if it's done in the right conditions, lichen transplantation could be a viable way to regrow lichen woodlands on the order of, say, 50 years rather than 80. But what are those right conditions? If you've never wandered around a burned forest before, you might imagine that they look something like this. And some do, but you might be surprised at how diverse they can be, especially a few years after the fire. And that heterogeneity matters when it comes to optimizing lichen woodland regeneration. My quest is to identify the best spawning conditions for lichen woodlands in burned forests. In 2021, 460 liters of caribou lichen fragments were transplanted into 50 sites in the Decho and Clicho regions of the NWT. I visited the wee lichen babies in 2022 and 2023 and conducted assessments to see how well they were doing, and to identify the forest conditions that they were, well, lichen the most.
This is one of my lichen transplantation sites, or quadrats. And so all along this strip here, if you were going north, you'd find sort of these 1 meter by 1 meter blocks on either side where we've transplanted lichen fragments to see if we can sort of accelerate the recovery of boreal burn.
2 years is very short in caribou lichen world, so it's too early to tell if lichen patches are establishing. Rather, we can see if the transplant sites have retained the lichen, we can measure lichen stress, and perform visual assessments to see where it is that they're thriving. I'm still analyzing the results, so I don't have much to share just yet, so watch this space. So far, we've identified some vascular species that coexist well with caribou lichen fragments in burns, like Labrador tea, lingonberry, cloudberry, twinflower, and bunchberry. And some species that coexist less well with lichen fragments, like willows, cinquefoil, dwarf birch, and some wet-loving plants like shady horsetail and water sedge. We're preparing to make recommendations for caribou lichen transplantation, and it feels timely as caribou habitat management and post-fire restoration become hot ticket items. I would like to thank WCS Canada and the Weston Family Foundation for their support. Funding from the Boreal Fellowship allowed me to pivot as my fieldwork was paused twice due to wildfire evacuations. It also allowed me to spend more time in my research communities and to help my research assistants get some field gear. So thanks again for your help. Finally, big thanks to my lab, the Forest Ecology Research Group, and my field assistants.